Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Donkey Projections. My name is Lucas, and today I was actually invited as a special guest onto Purple Political Talk and Unbiased Election Projections podcast that they do every week. This is their 7th episode now. As I said before, I'm a special guest today, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Eric couldn't make it to the podcast, but I was able to go to discuss Biden's next vice president. And with that being said, let's get right into it.
Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to another episode of the Purple Projections podcast. Purple and I are so excited to bring on another guest for this week's episode. So without further ado, the one, the only Red Donkey Projections.
Hey everyone, I'm Lucas from Red Donkey Projections. Eric couldn't come today, but I'll be here.
Yeah, so today we have another episode of our Purple Projections podcast, and we're going to be talking about who will win the Biden nomination, I would guess, for VP, because at this point it's really up to him and his campaign. So we're excited to have Red Donkey on it, and we're going to discuss all of this today. So do you have anything else to say, Red Donkey?
I don't know. I guess I don't have anything else to say.
Okay, so let's get started. So before we begin, I want to answer one big question that's a big dynamic when it comes to the vice presidential nominee. How will Joe Biden's vice presidential nominee change the dynamic of the 2020 presidential election as well as the Democratic ticket? So we know that whoever he chooses is going to have a big effect, whether it is helping him carry states or get bases excited. So generally speaking, what is going to be the biggest change? So Red Donkey, do you want to start by that one?
Sure. Well, to be quite honest, I don't think it will impact it that much. Maybe if he chooses not that great of a candidate, it will probably hurt him. We saw that in 2008 when John McCain chose Sarah Palin. It really didn't help his campaign that much. But usually people are voting for the person on that top of the ticket, voting for the president of the United States. Sure, vice president might be a small factor, but in my opinion, it's not such a huge one. It can definitely slightly help or hurt in certain states, but definitely won't be the main factor of how a person votes.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree with Red Donkey on this one. So I think that this is being overhyped because, like, other than coronavirus, we have nothing really to talk about. So we're talking about the unknown in politics right now. And like the only question like to be decided like before we can 100% hone in on the Biden versus Trump matchup is who's going to be the VP. So I agree that it's not going to help or hurt him. I think that if he chooses someone, regardless, like he's obviously not going to choose someone like Sarah Palin, who's that horrendous. But say he chooses maybe a Kamala Harris, he'll see maybe like a 1% polling boost with Black voters or something like that. Say he chooses Elizabeth Warren, he'll see a 2% poll boost with progressives, that kind of thing. But overall, it'll come down to who can get their point across better and where the state of the country is come November.
Yes. Yeah, I want to add another point to that. So I remember reading this good point. It was an article. It was basically saying, like, if vice presidents determined how an election would go, in 1988, Michael Dukakis would have defeated George H.W. Bush. George H.W. Bush's vice president was Dan Quayle, who was considered by many to be too inexperienced and not a good pick, while Michael Dukakis had Lloyd Bentsen, who was very experienced, a Texas senator. He completely did very well in the debates against Dan Quayle. So if we see that happen, so it's not really the main determiner of an election.
So, yeah, I mean, the debate moment between Dan Quayle and Lloyd Bentsen is a very famous moment in debate history when he called, Jack Kennedy. So I'm going to, put my point of view on this. Okay, is the VP nominee going to be the deciding factor of the election? Probably not. However, it's going to be a little bit elevated considering Joe Biden's kind of older age and a lot of concerns with his health, which, I mean, I think is a ridiculous point. I mean, Bernie Sanders is pretty old, and they want to run him for president, and Donald Trump is pretty old. So, I mean, the age is not an issue. Whatever, voters are actually voting for the most part in VP. If they're excited for this candidate, that means that candidate will probably have a very good starting off point when it comes to 2024.
Yeah, you know what? I do agree with that in that this year VP might be a little bit more important than past years due to the fact that, Joe Biden is an older candidate. I personally don't see him running for re-election to that 2024, so his vice presidential pick would be very crucial to that 2024 election.
Yeah.
Okay, we should move on.
So yeah, let's go on to our next. So our first person. So we're gonna talk about 5 persons and then 2 honorable mentions. So we're gonna talk with our first pick in no particular order, and that is Senator Kamala Harris from the state of California. So, just introducing her a little bit. She is part of very crucial Senate committees. She's famous for the Kavanaugh hearings, and she's famous for being one of the more somewhat more conservative type of Democrats because she's tough on crimes, but very liberal on other things. She is a Black American, so that really would help her with support in areas like the Deep South and in areas like Chicago or Cleveland to have in somewhat more swing states, actually more like Ohio, that have a lot more African Americans. So Kamala Harris is a candidate she appeals to minorities, unlike some other candidates on this list. So she is a nice pick, I would say, for the Democrats, just because, one, she's just famous from all the things she said, and how she's a little bit anti-establishment, although she can be, oftentimes, sometimes she can be establishment. So Kamala Harris, I think, is a great pick. So who wants to say something about Kamala Harris?
All right, I'll go. Okay, so I'm going to say one thing and then pass it over to Red Donkey, but I think that Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, I'm not going to say that she's unpopular, but I do think that she does have a lot of issues, especially with her tough on crime stance. And yeah, she's Black, so that does help her with the BLM movement. But again, her record, as Tulsi Gabbard pointed out during the debates, like hiding information that could have gotten people who were accused of using marijuana out of trouble legally, she basically hid that from sight that got those people in trouble with the law. So she has not a clean record. Plus the fact that she does have a feud with Joe Biden overall, like in the first debate, probably one of the most probably top 3 moments of the Democratic primary, when she said it was hurtful to hear you talk about those people's records who were famous for supporting segregation, etc. So I overall don't think Kamala Harris is a great pick. Now, she wouldn't be a disaster, so I can see Joe Biden picking her, but overall I think there are better options.
And I'd like to agree with you on that. She is experienced. She is a person of color. Her baggage will probably be a pretty big issue. As you said, Tulsi Gabbard completely did rip her in the debates for her baggage. There's a long list of things that people can point out here. Is she the best pick here? I genuinely don't know. She's definitely one of the top contenders, that's for sure. She's the best pick because, again, baggage is going to cause a very big issue. She could help in those African-American states let me rephrase that. Those states with more African-American people, such as maybe North Carolina, a swing state like that. That could be helpful to the Biden campaign. But, again, baggage might be an issue. But every candidate here does have baggage, or at least to my knowledge, except for very few. Like Val Demings has baggage for sure. Susan Rice has some baggage from the Obama administration. So baggage could play a big role in this selection.
Yeah, I feel like you're definitely right. And just looking at some past elections, I mean, one thing that could be said about Hillary Clinton's campaign, comparing this a little bit in candidate choice, although Hillary Clinton wasn't the VP, she was at the top of the ticket, she had a lot of baggage, which was detrimental to her campaign. At this point, since it's a VP, will it be again, it's not going to be as big of an effect as having her on the top of the ticket. However, it's still going to have an effect when it comes to Joe Biden trying to maximize results with his vice presidential pick.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think we should move on.
Yeah. So, the next person,
to the viewers really quickly, because I'm kind of in a hurry. I have a math class literally in like almost 20 minutes, so it's at home, but so I don't really drive, but I'm just kind of in a hurry. So
yeah,
that's on me.
So our next person is Karen Bass. So Red Donkey, would you like to introduce her?
Sure. She is currently a representative from the state of California. She is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. In my opinion, she'd definitely be an interesting pick. She has been jumping up in the headlines recently as a top contender. She is an African-American. She's a person of color. Although I do have to say she does not have that much name recognition. A lot of people really don't know her. And I think the other issue was she did have some type of scandal that might not, well, not really scandal, but it might really not make her good look good. I think she praised Scientology, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
I think
praised Fidel Castro.
Yeah, she praised Fidel.
Yeah. Again, I personally don't think she's one of the best picks, because name recognition is probably going to play a relatively big factor here. And she's from the state of California, a deep blue state. So overall, I don't know if she's the best pick here.
Yeah, so here with Karen Bass, I think it's a little interesting, because I think one of her biggest, she's a candidate that would be somewhat safer when it comes to like picking her. I think a lot safer than Harris at least. However, she has one big drawback, and it comes with the state of Florida. So I'm a Latino from the state of Florida, so I know how a lot of these people feel. And Fidel Castro, I'm praising him, which is something that Karen Bass did actually do when he died. I mean, is it like super like big, like, oh my gosh, you're like one of his allies? Probably not, because I mean, reaching out to a foreign leader when he died. However, that doesn't seem good with Latinos in the state of Florida, because for the most part, most of them are Cuban, which have a very strong opinion of Fidel Castro because he killed many of them. And that really does not look good for Karen Bass. And although, I mean, that happens, I mean, generally speaking, she's somewhat safer because she's the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, which, I mean, is a good, like, it's a good look amongst at least leaders when it comes to more local levels of politics in the United States. So that might really help her in certain areas of the country. Other than that, I mean, she's a pretty boring candidate because she's not well known. She doesn't have too much political baggage, again, because she hasn't been talked about too much before this vice presidential pick. Other than that, I mean, she is a okay candidate. I mean, nothing stellar, I would say. UEP?
Yeah, so not stellar, but this has been the topic. She has no name recognition. I'll be honest. I didn't know who she was until about a month ago. Well, so I don't know why I couldn't say that. She is a congresswoman from California's 43rd congressional district, I believe, and that's generally towards the south of California. So like thinking more LA, that region. So it's like not the Bay Area, but it's also important to note. Going back to this topic, this has been the one issue I have, and I think Joe Biden should not pick her 100%. She's, I think, a very bad candidate because of name recognition, and also praising Fidel Castro. And Purple said it greatly, that he really thinks that's a bad idea, and like especially he sounded offended by it. So again, you're alienating a lot of Hispanic voters in a very crucial swing state that don't like. If Joe Biden wins Florida, it's game over for Trump. Like, you can try different pathways to victory for Trump. You can't do a plausible one without Florida. So if he's trying to lose Florida, without trying to make anyone notice, he should choose Karen Bass. But I think she's a really bad pick, and I would not. If I were Joe Biden, I would certainly not choose her.
Yeah. So that was Representative Karen Bass. But again, like we all said, I mean, she's not the best pick. I mean, she does have support amongst African Americans, especially leaders of the Democratic Party, more in the local levels and statewide in some of these states. So, I mean, best pick, probably not. But, I mean, out of the ones we have, I mean, she would probably fall down middle average. So, the next person we're going to be talking about is Susan Rice. So, UEP, do you want to talk about her?
Thanks. So Susan Rice, for those of you who don't know, she has some name recognition, but not a ton. So to fill you guys in, she was a national security advisor in the Obama administration. So she does so she has served with Biden, and I believe her and Joe Biden have a pretty good relationship. So that's good news for her. However, she does have some baggage. A Red Donkey mentioned this when we were talking about Kamala Harris. So two things. First, she was part of the Benghazi committee, and anyone kind of associated with that that's bad news for the Democrats, as we saw with Hillary Clinton. And a lot of people didn't fully understand what happened, and people are still basically don't know what happened today. But the whole being associated with that is not good news. Also, she sent emails during the waning months of Obama's presidency that made it seem like she was spying on the Trump campaign. So she has baggage. But again, overall, not too many scandals that would plague her campaign for VP or plague the Biden campaign going up against someone like Donald Trump. But overall, I think she's so far out of this list the best, but I think there are still better options. So I'll pass it on to Red Donkey.
I agree with you. I think she is one of the better candidates here, probably within the top two with Kamala Harris for the best choices for Biden. Baggage, yeah, but I do think that it is decently less than Kamala Harris's baggage for sure. She does have good political experience as the National Security Advisor and also the ambassador to the UN, former ambassador to the UN. So I think she overall is a pretty decent pick for Joe Biden. And she's a person of color, so that's definitely going to help Joe Biden as well. Because he is facing a good amount of pressure from people to choose a person of color.
Yeah. So, I mean, as for her drawback, because, I mean, she is, like, if you look at her on paper without looking at her baggage, she's probably by far one of the best, if not the best candidates. Where do her drawbacks come, and where does her baggage come? First of all, like they mentioned, I mean, right now is not a good time to be completely tied to the Obama administration. Right now, a lot of senior officials of the Obama administration are being investigated. We saw Sally Yates. She testified to Congress the other, I think yesterday, about all these different things when it came to spying on the Trump campaign. And Susan Rice was pretty much a big part of that group. So she easily, if they ask her to testify, that might not look good for the Biden ticket, especially since Obama's former vice president is on the ticket. I mean, it's not a good look, I would say. So, I mean, it would be a lot safer if they went with someone else. However, she has very good benefits as she is well-known, I guess. Not well-known, but she is, she would be popular amongst voters. But again, she doesn't have elected official, elected experience as all of the positions politically that she's been given have been appointed. So that's a thing to note as well. So let's actually move on to the next person. That would be Senator Elizabeth Warren. So I'm going to take this one to introduce her. Senator Elizabeth Warren, I mean, she is a pretty famous person, I would say, right now in the Democratic Party. And she used to be a lot more popular, I would say. But then because she was, like, pretty progressive, a little bit more progressive back around 2018. She was very good friends with Bernie Sanders. We still don't know how that relationship is now after the primaries. But she is a known progressive, and she is from the state of Massachusetts. She's an incumbent senator. So here's the thing with Warren. She definitely appeals, I would say, to the suburban moms. If that's a group that Joe Biden needs to win, absolutely, then Elizabeth Warren is a way to go. Elizabeth Warren is, I think, Hillary Clinton, just a little bit more progressive without that much political baggage. So, I mean, Elizabeth Warren is a great debater, and she would beat Mike Pence in a lot of the debates. Which, if we consider that Joe Biden's not the best debater, and I would say not the best campaigner, I think someone like Elizabeth Warren, who is a good debater and an excellent campaigner, I think that would be a good pick, and they would be compatible. So, UEP, I'm going to give you a chance to talk about Elizabeth Warren.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I like Senator Warren a lot. I think that she's I think that one of the biggest kind of misconceptions about her is that she's part of the establishment, which she is not. She served the Senate at least in 2012 before there was a school teacher, and she grew up in a poor family in the middle of Oklahoma. So by no means was she, brought up in politics. So I overall think she's a decent pick. Again, she hasn't really spoken a ton about BLM, which is going to hurt her. So those are the drawbacks. But overall, she would do a pretty good job at kind of unifying the party, because there are still some of the Bernie bros are kind of coming around for Joe Biden, but there are still some who are going to be really tough to get out to vote. And yeah, but I do want to mention that there is a bit of distrust between Warren and Sanders. Now, like Purple said, back in 2018, 2019, they were pretty good friends, and they were both by far the biggest progressives in the race, like excluding like random people like Bill de Blasio and Marianne Williamson, but they were the two big progressives in the race. And but since then, things have changed. Like first of all, Elizabeth Warren stayed in the race and passed where it looked like she basically had no chance after her bad showing in New Hampshire. And again, I like Elizabeth Warren a lot. I think there are a lot of good things about her, but she didn't have a chance to pass in New Hampshire. But I think she was staying in because she knew that a Bernie campaign would actually hurt the Democrats, especially in down ballot races in states that Bernie's not very strong in. So I don't know why she stayed in, but that could be one of the reasons. So she stayed in. That hurt the Bernie campaign. And then also, she didn't endorse Bernie after she dropped out, even though most people thought she was going to. And she ended up just not endorsing anyone until Bernie dropped out and then endorsed Joe Biden. So a bit of distrust, and I think that's overall what killed her prospects of being VP.
Interesting. I'll add my input into this. I do kind of disagree with your point there. I don't believe that Warren was necessarily a spoiler. I don't think there's enough data to back that. I do think that Biden probably could have still won without Warren in the race, but nevertheless, a lot of Bernie supporters, those hardcore Bernie supporters, are not going to want Elizabeth Warren on that ticket because they don't like her. And as you said, because people do perceive her as being a spoiler. Whether it's true or not, that's how some people are going to perceive it. And now because of that, I do know that a portion of those Bernie supporters might they might vote for the Green Party candidate, Howie Hawkins. Now that would be pretty interesting to see how that might impact the election. I personally don't think it will impact it a lot. So I do also believe that Warren is a pretty solid choice here. And we actually plotted a map out according to ourprogress.org. They also showed that Warren does help in most of the states. And additionally, according to polling, a lot of people do believe that Warren is the best choice out of the candidates, the possible contenders for VP. So overall, I do think Warren does do a good job of uniting the Democratic Party. Although one pretty big drawback is her age. As we discussed earlier in this podcast, Joe Biden's going to need to choose a younger woman because it's pretty unlikely that he does seek re-election in 2024. Warren is like 70, 71 around there. So that might not really be that ideal for a vice president.
Yeah. But I mean, I gotta agree with Red Donkey here. I mean, was she a spoiler? That could be discussed. I mean, Joe Biden won Super Tuesday with at least Warren still in the race. And I think Super Tuesday was also everyone else was in the race, if I'm correct. Or I think they dropped out right before. I'm forgetting the timeline of events. However, I think Elizabeth Warren, like all of you said, is a great pick. And I think that honestly, drawback again, Bernie Bros. And I mean, other than that, she's very well prepared. She's done some other stuff other than Congress. She has experience. She actually worked for the Obama administration for a little bit she had like a very like specific position. She was researching something or something like that. But she has very good experience, I would say, and she's a great candidate to pick for VP. So we're gonna move on to the next person, and that is Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham. So, Redonkey, do you want to introduce her?
Yeah, this is an interesting pick here. Eric and I have discussed this a lot. The biggest drawback here is that she is not that well known. She is a Latina person of color that could help him win those Southwest states. You got Arizona, a huge battleground state now. Oh, I'm introducing her. Michelle Lujan Grisham, sorry about that. She is the current governor of the state of New Mexico. She was elected pretty recently, I believe. She's part of the Lujan family, like Ben Lujan, who is running for Senate in New Mexico. I do think governor is a good amount of experience. It's within my top tier of experience. It goes like governor, senator, House. So I do think it is good executive experience if you want to serve as, vice president or something. But again, the big issue is name recognition. And I don't believe that Grisham has that much baggage, or at least not to our knowledge, because she really isn't that well known. It's kind of similar to like the other cases we talked about where they're not that well known. We don't really know that much baggage. So at the moment, she does look like to be a solid pick, but I don't think she'll be considered that seriously due to the fact that she's not that well known.
So yeah, I mean, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, in my view, is one of the better picks the Democratic Party can pick. Why do I say this? So I honestly feel like for the Democratic Party, they have a somewhat strong grasp on the African American community. Well, the Latino community is jumping boat. We've seen that Donald Trump has improved somewhat with Latinos nationwide, and I think Michelle Lujan Grisham brings somewhat more of a moderate Democrat. And the other big benefit that she does have is that she's so boring that Biden wouldn't be affected. Biden, if he keeps on going like he is right now, he's on streak to win the election. If he becomes someone like Kamala Harris or a Susan Rice, who's very scandal prone at this time, just because of things they've done in the past, might hurt the entire ticket. However, with Michelle Lujan Grisham, I mean, what's her biggest scandal? I mean, last month she had a huge scandal. She went and bought jewelry during the pandemic. That was her scandal. I mean, it's things that are so ridiculous. And I mean, no campaign ads should be able to hurt Michelle Lujan Grisham. So I think that is a good pick on a campaign and marketing type of side, because they shouldn't be worrying about her saying something kind of stupid compared to how or a gaffe rather than something stupid. But I mean, she's just a good pick because she's safe. She's a minority. She's a woman of color, and she has no baggage. So that's a pretty good thing for the Democrats. UEP?
Okay, so I think that she's a good pick, but again, the name recognition is going to be an issue for her. Plus, she's not from a super swingy state. Now, she does have Latino appeal, which is going to help them because Arizona and Nevada are still contested to a certain level.
Texas.
Oh, yeah, in Texas, of course, I forgot that. But 3 of those states are contested. Colorado and New Mexico probably won't be contested. But I think that she doesn't have enough name recognition. But again, she'll be hard to attack because, oh my gosh, she bought jewelry during the pandemic. It's not going to be a huge issue. So don't do much to say. She'd be a pretty strong pick, and I do think that she would help Latino turnout. So I'd be okay with her as a VP or as a VP candidate.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, like I said, Red Donkey, do you want to finish up your point that you were saying on Michelle Lujan Grisham?
So yeah, I do overall think she is a pretty good pick. Increasing Hispanic turnout, as you two both mentioned, in states like Mexico, which surprisingly might be in play this year, and Arizona as well. And those two are very big, important battleground states. But as UEP reiterated, name recognition will likely be an issue.
Yeah. And I think I just kind of by the way, so Michelle Lujan Grisham, she's an interesting candidate. But the next person, I mean, I wanted to put on the slides, but I don't know why I forgot. So I'm gonna go to the next slide as the honorable mentions. However, for some reason I forgot to put on Val Demings on the slide. I don't know what I was thinking, but let's discuss Val Demings because she honestly is one of the better candidates, if not one of the best, for Joe Biden at this point. So, UEP, do you want to discuss her? I mean, she deserves her own slide, but I just forgot to do that. So, I'm sorry.
Guys, I hate to bail on you, but I think I have to go literally this second. So, so I guess I'll just say what I have to say, and then.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll wrap it up with Red Donkey.
Okay, so Val Demings, I think, is a strong pick. She does have a bad record as the police chief of Orlando, I think, but solid pick from Florida. She's black. She has appeal to everyone across the aisle. She's pretty moderate, so she could even get some GOP voters who are on the fence about Trump over to the Biden ticket. But again, I don't think that I think that she's a good pick, but I don't think that she's being seriously considered by the Biden campaign. I don't think she's being vetted anymore.
Interesting.
To the best of my knowledge. So, all right, guys, I'm not gonna be here, but I'm gonna keep recording on my screen. So, yeah.
So I'll wrap it up with Lucas. So,
sure.
I mean, I should have put her on this slide. She's one of the biggest picks. I don't know why I did not do that. But, however, I mean, she is a great candidate. She's from Florida, so she can carry a lot of the African-American population in the state, which, if you think about it, it might be a good thing because that might offset some of the Latino voters that are not going to be voting for Joe Biden just because they support Donald Trump. Because, surprisingly, there's a lot of Trump support amongst Latinos in Florida. And Val Demings, she's able to also carry a lot of the Deep South and improve their Georgia, South Carolina, get the margin a little up. And generally speaking, in areas where nationwide, because even though there might not be states where African Americans are the somewhat larger than populations than in the bigger states, you have certain parts of certain states that are heavily African American. So she's a great pick. Red Donkey?
Yeah, I think it is would very much would be an interesting pick. She is being considered a lot right now. Here are the major drawbacks for Eric and I. So the first one is experience. Yes, she's a representative, but she has not served too long. The last time we saw a representative on the VP ticket was Paul Ryan, which was 2012. So, I mean, experience could be a small factor, but I think the bigger factor or issue for us is name recognition. She is not known well in the state of Florida, or at least that's what I think.
Yeah. So I'm from Florida, and I didn't know who she was before she was being mentioned for VP.
Yeah, so it might be a pretty big issue. And the third one, I think, is probably the biggest issue. We actually made a whole video discussing this. It's her baggage. She has a lot of baggage from when she was the police chief of Orlando. Well, not a lot, but I will say that she does have some baggage. Maybe less compared to Kamala Harris, but she has some of that baggage. And you can watch that video on my channel. I'll put it somewhere. But anyways, Val Demings, as a police chief, she is going to have some baggage, and even the Black Lives Matter chairman said something about how it would be very idiotic for Joe Biden to choose Val Demings, something along those lines. And during the times we're in right now with Black Lives Matter really big in the news and a very big movement right now, it could pose an issue to her candidacy. I actually was reading through some of her other stuff. As a representative, she actually supported a bill that is considered to be a huge part of the Blue Lives Matter movement. She co-sponsored it. I forgot which representative it was by, but it was a Republican representative. So that could face some scrutiny from the African-American community. So those are the big issues for me, but I do think she is being considered a lot for this role.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's Val Demings. I mean, she's gotten well-known because of the VP choice, and I think that's pretty much it for her. I mean, other than that, she's a pretty, normal Black woman in America. She's very inspiring, and she's able to get a lot of the support. So we're going to go on to the honorable mentions that we do have right now. I mean, I don't know. Again, I forgot to put Val Demings on her own side, but our two honorable mentions, I mean, we're going to briefly talk about them. Mayor Keisha Bottoms from the state of Georgia. She's the mayor of Atlanta. And Senator Tammy Duckworth from the state of Illinois. So do you want to introduce at least one of them?
Sure. I'll start with Mayor Bottoms first. She is, yes, as you said, the current mayor of Atlanta. She was on the news a lot recently with the recent Black Lives Matter protests. I don't think she's being considered that much. And the reason for that is experience. And it's kind of the reason why Eric and I didn't really think Abrams was going to be seriously considered either, due to the fact that the highest position she served was a state legislator. Bottoms does have a little bit more executive experience than her because she did serve as mayor, which has a little bit more of an executive role than just being serving a legislative role. But experience is a huge drawback for us. And that one factor, and maybe possibly name recognition as well, not that many people know her, it doesn't, in our opinions, make her the best pick out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Lance Bottoms, that's one of her big drawbacks. I mean, she's unexperienced in some calibers. And, I mean, if they were considering putting Stacey Abrams on the ticket, I would say that they should also consider Keisha Lance Bottoms. I think she would be a very good candidate because she doesn't have that much political baggage. She is quite popular amongst African Americans. She is from the South, and she does have that key strategy that the Democrats are looking for at this time in finding a VP from the South. That's a strategy Joe Biden is going. He's banking on Florida. He's banking on North Carolina. He's trying to win Georgia. So he's doing that just in case the Rust Belt doesn't go for him. So Keisha Lance Bottoms would be a great pick to satisfy those needs. So I'm going to go now with Senator Tammy Duckworth. We have to do this briefly because we have only a couple more minutes left. And Senator Tammy Duckworth is actually a very interesting person. She's a war veteran and she is disabled. She has one of her legs amputated. She serves in the United States Senate for the state of Illinois. And she honestly would be a very good candidate because she is inspiring to the suburbs. She is very good amongst different types of voters, especially amongst the Midwest, which is a key area for Joe Biden this time around. Right, Donkey?
I do agree with that. I think one of the problems could be a geographical, not being having that great geographical advantage. Although you did mention that she is from Illinois, which, although is a safe blue state, it is within that Midwest area that is very crucial to a Biden victory. So I do personally think that she could provide a little bit of geographical advantage, but not too much. She is a senator. She, I believe, she was inaugurated in 2017, was elected in 2016. So I think she would definitely be a very interesting pick. Is she being considered that much? I think a moderate amount. I think if I had to put this in tiers, like S tier, A tier, B tier, I think I would put her at A tier, honestly, with the Joe Biden picks.
Yeah, she's a good pick. Generally speaking, she appeals to many different kinds of people. Think she would do great as VP. So those were our VP picks. Or rather, analyzing the VP picks. I mean, I forgot to put ballot dummies on the slides, but that doesn't really matter. And realistically, me and UEP want to thank all of you for watching. I'm sure Red Donkey as well. So we want to thank you for coming on our podcast. We had a lot of fun filming this, and we currently have some goals. Can we help Purple, me, and UEP reach 500 subscribers? That is a goal that we've had for a long time. And our friends Red Donkey are somewhat ahead of us by a little bit. They're ahead of us by almost 1,000 subscribers. But still, I guess they have a goal to get to 2K subscribers. They reached 1,000 subscribers. Yeah, really fast. So please go follow all the channels, like this video on all the channels, and I hope you enjoy more of the content that all of us will be producing. All of us have big plans for our channel, I'm guessing. And yeah, so remember to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to get notified when we post our next videos, whenever that is. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm going to say, hold on. So, anything else you have to say to your viewers?
You know what? Thank you guys so much for having me. I had a lot of fun today.
Yeah, so that was very fun. So yeah, so we're done, and goodbye.